Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody always asks why, I'm here to ask, why not? I'll be breaking down the mindsets of guests as well as my own in a bid to find out what makes people say, why not? Well, hello, and welcome back to Why Not. Hello, and welcome back to Why Not. So, I am continuing with the solo episodes. As I say in this one, I'm probably going to keep them for August. But today, I am talking all about what is actually healthy. Because I did a post on this the other day on Instagram, and I've had some good responses to it. People finding it good. So, I thought I'd talk about it. And I got in a little bit of rant because I just want everyone to be happy and not be manipulated by the fitness industry or bitches selling people stuff. Anyway, as ever guys, if you would like to sit back and relax or walk and listen, please do enjoy today my podcast, which is What is Health? Hello and welcome back to Why Not. So today, here I am on my own. I think I'm doing a month of solos, to be honest. But I wanted to talk about... I put up a post on Tuesday. And I titled the post, I'm trying to be healthy. And basically the whole premise of the post was things kind of we do when we're, quote unquote, trying to be healthy. And like, question, is it really healthy? Or is it actually the exact opposite? Which a few people have read it and have come back to me saying that it was really good post. They thought it was great. So I just thought that it would be really good to maybe expand on some of the things that I said in that post, because you can only fit so much into Instagram. And it would be great to show you guys maybe, or talk about these things that you may not be realizing is actually not really healthy behavior. You may have convinced yourself it's healthy behavior, but on the grand scheme of things, it's not really. Now, I want to say as well, I'm not judging anyone. I'm not saying that this is the be all and end all. I'm not saying what I'm saying is right. This is just an opinion. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to attack them personally or say that they are doing things wrong. And sometimes some things work for people and it actually helps them in different ways. But there are some little telltale signs in some cases that it's a little bit much and maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Not that you maybe shouldn't be doing it, but maybe you need to look a little bit deeper. And I just want to say that. I said it, as again, this is just my opinion and do not feel so worried about it. So, my post, I'm going to read it to you and then I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit, okay? So, the post is titled, I'm trying to be healthy. And I asked, is it still healthy if it occupies every waking minute? Is it still healthy if you get anxiety about going somewhere because it doesn't have food that you can, in quotes, eat? Is it still healthy if you panic because you didn't hit your step count? Is it still healthy if you skip time with friends or family because you can't skip a training session? Don't get me wrong, there are times we may have to choose between our goals and our lifestyle, but there's a fine line between discipline and obsession. Planning your food so you don't end up stuck can be a very healthy practice, but not being able to take a day off plan without massive anxiety is not. And then in brackets, I did want to have a little caveat here, unless you suffer digestive issues or allergies, so the likes of IBS, or say for instance if you have a peanut allergy, worrying about having peanuts is probably a good idea. As training like an athlete is not necessary to drop a few dress sizes. It can be argued that that level of training that actually athletes do is unhealthy even for them, and I'll come back to that in a bit. Next time you hear yourself saying or thinking the phrase, I'm trying to be healthy, dig a little deeper and think about whether it is or isn't actually healthy. You might be surprised with the answer you come up with. And then I had a little question. What practice have you ditched you previously thought was healthy but now you don't think was? So, I just wanted to expand on this one, and as I said, it's kind of a short post and I want to break down some of the things I said in it. Like I said, when it comes to worrying about food or food anxiety, if you have if you have any times of IBS or any forms of allergies or lactose intolerance, or even if you are someone who is on a vegan or vegetarian diet and you don't eat animal products and you're worried you're going somewhere that won't have a vegetarian option, I think that type of anxiety around food is completely normal and completely warranted, if for want of a better description. Like, it's not something that you should be like, there's something wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. What I'm talking about is if you are, for instance, on a diet and you've been given, or a food plan, and you've been given like a list of foods you're allowed to eat, or a certain amount of calories you're allowed to eat, and you're going somewhere to eat and they don't have anything on your approved food list, or it's something that might push you over your calories, it will cause you enough anxiety to not go, or just feel very uncomfortable the whole time, or like, ordering everything plain because it's part of your plan. And look, if you're going to do a bodybuilding competition and you're on prep, yeah, totally fair. But if you are just literally trying to lose a little bit of weight, I don't think it's, as I said, a particularly healthy habit. I don't believe that you need to be on this strict diet where you can't enjoy your life, or you can't eat a sauce because it's a little bit extra calories. On the flip side, you can't live on that food if you are, say, trying to drop some body fat. If you are, that again is completely up to you, but your diet or your eating protocol, for want of a better description, should not be dictating your whole life. Yes, when you are trying to lose body fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit. Yes, you can end up hungry from time to time. Yes, you may not be able to eat as much of the, nice, quote unquote nice foods, but say, highly processed, hyper palatable foods. But that doesn't mean you can't fit some of it into your lifestyle. Maybe it'll push you over your calories a little bit. Maybe it won't. But at the end of the day, if you are in a calorie controlled diet, the calories obviously should be dealable. Not dealable, but they should give you the flexibility to enjoy yourself, as opposed to very, very strict calories, very, very strict rules, what you can and can't eat. And it's very, very important that we have this, because this whole I'm stuck on plan thing obviously causes a lot of binging. I covered a bit of that in the last podcast, in the what do we want, or what do I want, or do I want that, or do I think I want that? And it can even lead to these like kind of secret binges and stuff like that people have had, where they disappear into their room and secret eat, and then say like, I don't know why I'm not losing weight, which is again completely not their fault, by the way. I'm not saying any kind of emotional eating like that is anyone's fault, but these kind of controlled diets can cause these things to happen, because once you break it, you're like, well, whatever. Or instead of that, you'll just hide everything and tell whoever's giving you it that you're on plan. And I just don't think that it's a great way to live. It's not enjoyable. And having anxiety about going to see people or going to a party just because there might not be the quote unquote good foods available, I think it's not healthy, for want of a better description. As I said, unless there's a specific reason, like you're doing a bodybuilding show or doing a weight cut for a competition, like a boxing competition, I don't think it's a great way to be. And it can be argued that doing those weight cuts or those extreme cuts bodybuilders do aren't healthy either, which I think I want to go into this a little bit as well. So athletes, and as I said, people expect to train like an athlete and get just to drop a few chest sizes as someone who hasn't been training for a long time. And you have to remember, a lot of people aim for different goals without context. So you see someone on Instagram, say for instance, I put up today that I did 8 pull-ups. Absolutely delighted with myself. I've been working on it for a long time. My record has been 7. And that's the first time I broke that. Now, maybe it was 7.5 today, but I'm still counting it, okay? People see that and go, oh my God, why can't I do that? I really want to do that. She's done that. How did she do that? I have been training in the gym for, I'd say, at least 10 years. I've been working on pull-ups on and off for at least 3 to 4 years at this stage. I've had a few shoulder injuries that resulted in me not able to train, and I've programmed them in all through lockdown. I spent time doing them every day to try and improve them, to get myself a shoulder injury, so trying to do that once a week now, maybe twice a week doing pull-ups. Like, I've put so much effort into getting there, and it took me so long to get to that point. You don't see that part. You see the post where I got it, and it's the same with athletes. Like, you know, athletes who are training, like the people going to the Olympics are training, like the ones who, say for instance, the early 20 ones don't generally tend to do it. It's when they come to their third, maybe fourth no, not fourth, most don't have fourth, but second or third Olympics is more likely when they're going to win something, because they have that extra training behind them and they've worked for years and years and years. And I think we can't expect to do these things that we see online really quickly, and it takes time and it takes effort, it takes repetition, and it's boring. And people wonder why they can't do it, but it's boring and it takes discipline to do it. And as I said, even trying to get to this goal, a few times I've given myself shoulder injuries, right? Because I really want to get good at this. And like that, I've seen people on the internet who can whack them out. I've seen people who can do them in slow motion. And I'm like, why can't I do that? Obviously, they've spent a lot more time doing it. And this is what I'm saying, whereas like training like an athlete has a specific goal. So their goal is either to go to the Olympics or play for play county or play for a country. And in order to be at that level, they have to eat, sleep and live that goal constantly their whole time. Like, they're not, say for instance, they're not doing a 9 to 5 job, with the exception of GAA players. They're not looking after a family after a 9 to 5 job. They are literally eat, sleeping and breathing their goal. They have a target and that's what they want to do. They train, they get injured, they get surgeries, like they get all this different physio and stuff like that, recovery stuff. Like, realistically, if you look at that it is their career in a sense as well. But like, this level of whole life being planned around training, eating, recovering, like, you could argue, as I said, this can be argued that it's not healthy. Look at the amount of different injuries. Like, there was a Russian guy at the Olympics who had an Achilles injury in January, and he still went because he was like, I'm not missing the Olympics. You know, he could have snapped his Achilles again and career ending. Look at the rugby players who are constantly getting surgeries to fix stuff that they've they've done in the match. Like, they're like have G-force. The force of some of the things, like the scrum, some tackles are just similar to a car crash, and they're doing it by choice. Obviously, they get a paycheck as well, but look at this kind of, like, if you think about that, like, think about their bodies later on, think about like the wear and tear, like, you know, different, like, runners have issues, people who are doing the high jump, they're probably going to have impact issues in their joints, not necessarily high jump, but maybe the likes of the long jump and stuff like that. People who horse ride, even, like, hip injuries, shoulder injuries, nearly getting killed falling off the animals. Like, this is a thing that happens. Like, this is part and parcel of being an athlete. What you see is the people who stand on top of the podium or who lift the cup, but what you don't see is like the blood, sweat and tears that goes into that. As I said, the surgeries, the medical stuff, the certain, like, the nutrition, like their nutrition can be planned to a T, and they do not go off plan. Like they, you can see it. You see it a lot. Like they have blowouts when they win championships and stuff like that, which is fair. They've worked all season, or like in the Olympics, they're 4 year cycles. Their training's 4 years. You can understand why they just want to go wild and just enjoy themselves, and it's really like understandable because their life is so structured. I remember even Brian O'Driscoll mentioning before, if anyone knows who he is, that when he had that blonde hair, remember that? That was lovely. That he had it like that, and he obviously thinks it looks a bit silly now, but at the time he said it was one of the few things he could control over his life, because rugby basically controlled his life. Because season started in September, you have pre-season in October, you go the whole way through, you're out of Leinster to go to internationals, and you come back and you've got a summer tour. You know, they get about a month, maybe a month and a half off every year unless you're injured. So that was one thing they can control. So when you think about that, like the level of control they have over their lives is pretty low. But like as I said, I'm not even talking about just the physical toll on their bodies. Like you've seen it in the last Olympics as well, like Simone Biles pulling out of one of the competitions because of mental health issues. You know, there's so much pressure on them constantly, especially if you're representing your country, and the way that that, like, you know, social media is attacking them now. You've seen what happened with the English. It's happening a lot in other sports as well, which is just plain ridiculous, because everyone's projecting their problems onto them. But that was a little side note. But I'm just trying to highlight the fact that, like, you think training like an athlete will get you where you want to be, but how maybe training like an athlete is not what you need, because it's actually not a very healthy way to be, or a very advisable way to be, unless you are literally being paid to do so. You shouldn't need to train like that. And even them, they take rest days, because I see a lot of people, like, even who come to the gym, they don't want to take a day off, and they're really tired, and they're like, why am I so tired? It's like, when was the last time you took a day off? It's like, oh, well, 2 weeks ago, or I had one day off a week. And I try to convey that to them, that you need to take more time off. Like, personally, I would take about 2 days off a week from training. I like to take the weekends off, so I train during the week. And that's very important, because I need time to recover as well. And what people don't realise is, by overtraining constantly, you're actually going to hinder your results. So you wonder why, like, oh, I'm not improving on my lifts, I'm not getting heavier, like, you know, like my lifts aren't getting heavier, or I'm not seeing the definition that I expected by now. By the way, it's always going to take longer than you think, but this could be because you're overtraining, and you could actually get better results by not training so much, which probably sounds a bit weird. You kind of think, oh, the more I do, the better I do. But if your body doesn't get a chance to recover, I think I covered this in the fatigue episode a little bit, that you won't get those improvements. Literally that, like, your muscles aren't getting a chance to recover and grow back stronger and bigger, so they're constantly going to be stuck in this kind of limbo of kind of semi-decent, but could actually be better if either you ate more, slept more, or trained less. And that's just something to think about as well. You know, this obsession of training, like, if you feel like you cannot skip a session because if you do you will, say, get fat, that's not healthy. Like, you have to realize that it is not healthy to feel like that. You know, there's no missed session. Like, okay, best way of saying this is, if you feel like you're overweight or you're carrying too much body fat and you want to change that, and as I said, if you don't, that's fine. If you do, great, that's fine too. It's up to you. If that didn't happen overnight, people mistake the extra weight from water weight, whatever, you know, is overnight fat. It's not. It came over time. It took a long time. You didn't gain a stone in 2 weeks. It was probably over the course of months. You just noticed at a certain point when something got tight, or you caught yourself in a photo, something like that, or you realised you had to buy a bigger size clothes or something. So these things can, in fact, sorry. So if this took so long for it to come on, why do you expect it to go overnight too? It's not going to happen. It's going to take time. And starving yourself and overtraining isn't going to speed it up. Well, it might, but it won't last, I'll tell you now. And I know I've kind of talked about this a bit recently, but it's just something I feel it's coming up in the gym a lot recently. I'm noticing these things and I'm just feeling like sometimes you have to say it again and again and eventually it will land with someone. I know people who have struggled with different things, and I think it's really important to note that just because you've overcome that issue doesn't mean it won't come back. And if it came back again, an overtraining issue, it's something you need to, or an undereating, it's something you need to constantly be mindful of and be aware of. And don't beat yourself up if it does come back for any reason, because you are human and these things happen. And I just want to remind, I would consider myself in a fairly good, positive body image, body shape a lot of the time. I know I'm not calling myself fat, but even I have days where I'm say for instance, night drinking, or if you're on your period, when you're holding more water and you're oh, my stomach looks a bit bloaty, that's a bit shit, and you're you have to remind yourself that is not your fault. That is normal. You don't have to look a certain way. You could be back, you could, you drink a bit of water, you'll be grand the next day. Your period will pass, you can end up gaining a couple of kilos over your period, and it's just water weight and it's all gone after. And just remind yourself these little things before you let that little voice in your head call you whatever that says you're a failure at what you're doing. And it's just another way to make us feel shit about ourselves. But remember, our bodies are changing. You're going to be thinner in the morning, and you're going to be, say, bigger, or even you'll gain weight by the evening because there's food in your stomach. So that's why it was a great time to take photos, progress photos in the morning if you want to look real slim, because you haven't eaten yet. But these are things we forget when we're busy giving out to ourselves for not being perfect. You're oh yeah, I look shit, but you actually just look like a human, and humans, their stomach expands and contracts because it's a bag. So when there's food in the stomach, it expands, and when it's empty, it contracts. And that's just life. It's like your lungs. You don't see anyone saying, Jesus, I look too big, my lungs are full of air. Weird comment, but I know. It's just something to remember. And on that point of overtraining as well, I think the fitness industry is partially to blame. And this is coming from a girl who is in the fitness industry. But I feel like there's this push for this all in, all go, all it's the all hustle lifestyle, never take a day off, never miss a Monday, never, work hard. If you're not dying, you're not working hard enough. It's a very dramatic thing posted by the fitness industry. And you know what? If you don't feel up to training on a Monday, miss on Monday. If you need to take a day off, which you do, take a day off. If you don't feel up to pushing it for a session, especially if you are a female and you're in the second half of your cycle, you should not be pushing it in a session. There's a time and a place for everything, and context is really important. And telling everyone to just go, 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 work, 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 that PT image you get when you see someone, it's only eat broccoli and protein and train and do HIIT all the time. This is not what you need. I've nothing against HIIT, by the way. Again, within context, it has its uses, and it has, for me, it's not something I enjoy doing, but some people do. Some people find it a great outlet, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You just have to find. As I said, if HIIT works for you, HIIT works for you, but don't feel like. I feel like there's this thing going, God, I need to do a few HIIT sessions because I need to burn extra fat. But a 20-minute HIIT session versus the other 23 hours of the day aren't, think about that. If you've done 20 minutes and you have another, say for instance, you're awake 16 hours a day. They're 20 minutes on the grand scheme of things of how long you're awake of the day Is it going to make a massive difference? Realistically, look at that. Is it? Like, think about that. And it seemed to be like this go-to. Like, I had a friend say to me recently, like, oh, do you know any HIIT workouts? So I sent him on a few, and I was like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I need to lose some body fat. And I was like, well, what are you doing for the rest of the day? Because if you're sitting on your hole for the rest of the day, pardon the language, it's not going to make a difference. Like, this is the thing. We see this fast sweat, like, we assume sweating and being sore is going to be our fix, but it's not. And again, if you're obsessively doing hip sessions, you have to remember a lot of them are high impact, and the high impact can be damaging on the joints. So say for someone who's carrying a lot of extra weight, it can be very bad for their joints, because they're all like, joints are already under pressure, and now you're going to bounce around them. A lot of people aren't very good at landing softly through some of the exercises, which is a technique in itself. So again, every time you come down, if that's happening, think about how that's ricocheting through your joints. If you're not able to kind of bend your knees and softly spring through everything, it's going to affect you. And I think we have to be reminded of that. Like, HIIT isn't very good for beginners unless they're doing modified exercise where they're not bounding around the place. It's great. It can be great for helping you improve your anaerobic fitness. It can be great for ending workouts you've been training for a while, but sometimes that high impact stuff is not great for a beginner, and this can cause other issues. But again, we're sold this as your 20-minute HIIT workout that'll shred your fat, without taking any other context into it. So you wonder why you're doing 20 minutes a day and no change is made. Like, you know, if you're going to do 20-minute HIIT workout and sit on the couch all day eating crisps, it's not going to change. It's not going to make a big difference. Obviously, moving is great, but, you know, again, it depending on where you're at, like, even things like going for walks, not too high impact, nice, gets you out in the air, helps your mental health, great, can work just as well as your 20-minute HIIT workout. You know, doing a couple of workouts a week and getting out for a little stroll for 10 minutes or 20 minutes and just enjoying yourself can be so much more beneficial than if you were going for a mad, crazy 20-minute HIIT workout that you just feel bollocks after. Now, I'm not saying you don't feel great after HIIT workouts, but as I said, it's just something to think about. And I think as well, we have to remember that things take time, and try to look at the other measurements, because I know, talking to some people recently, some things were feeling great, and as soon as they got measurements that hadn't changed too much, it ruined how they felt. Like, and I know it's really hard when we're in that mindset. We've been told for years, this is what matters, that it's very difficult to be like, oh yeah, no, that's fine, it's grand, I'm still feeling good. But try to think of all the metrics you have. So if, say for instance, your measurements aren't down, or your weight isn't down or something, think about how you're feeling. Are you feeling better? Are you feeling stronger? Are clothes fitting better? We have to remember these things. Like, these are the little markers that we always forget, because we were always taught the scales, and especially with like slimming clubs. And, you know, when I was younger, I've talked about this before, like, it was this, you have to be, you know, basically weigh as little as possible. And like, it's crazy when you think about it. Like, you know, you shouldn't be weighing the same as like children or whatever. No, some people are naturally slim and weigh a lot less. Some people aren't, and some people, like, people are always surprised when I tell them my weight. Like, I am not a heavy person, but I have a friend who's like a lad who's about 6 or 7 kgs, I think just under 10 kgs maybe heavier than me, and I'm like, that's mad. But like, obviously it's muscle and it's denser, and I've gained weight over the last couple of years, and I've just actually built muscle, and I feel good about that, and I feel great about that. And once you, like, it's very free not caring about the scales anymore, but it takes a long time. And maybe if it's something that causes you anxiety, maybe it's time to get rid of it. Like, Shane Walsh is a big advocate for this, ditching the scales and focus on non-scale victories. So I think that's a great thing that he does with his clients, and gets them to think about these other things that are winning. How are you feeling? Do you feel more energized? Do you feel, you know, you can play with your kids better? Are your clothes fitting better? These are all things that don't relate back to what your measurements are. Is your mental health better? All these things. Remember, this is what we're chasing, not this certain number on the scale that unfortunately we've been stuck with for so long, and it's really, really hard to get out of this cycle, and I understand that as someone who's been in that cycle. So try not to be so hard on yourself, because you are so much more than a number. You are so much more than a weight loss journey. I want people to remember that, and that's why I want to talk about this healthiness and our constant need to be on a diet or on a health kick. And you've so much more to offer the world than just being a diet. You know, you don't want to be missing out on family events or time with loved ones because it doesn't fit into your diet. You know, in 40 years time, whatever, 20, 30 years time, you're not going to think about what you weighed. You're going to think about all the stuff you missed out because you're on a diet. Well, you'll remember those times of family, you remember these events, you'll remember all these things, but you won't remember your weight. Or, you know, I just think, as I said, it's just worth remembering that and putting these things more important than constantly trying to be healthy. And we're sold so much lies by the fitness industry, or people just trying to make a quick buck. So if it's something that seems too good to be true, always be wary. It probably is, because anything, I was driving with my pull-ups there, anything worth working for takes time and effort, and you'll feel so much better having achieved something like that rather than taking a shortcut or another crash diet and ruining more of your relationship with food. And I just want you guys to enjoy your life, as opposed to constantly being worrying about what your weight is, not necessarily how you look, but you know, it's just working with clients. It's kind of sad to see how much people worry about these things. And as I said, I'm still not perfect. I have bad days, and you never will be perfect. I don't believe anyone who says they fully love themselves all the time. Everyone has bad days and good days, especially if you're a girl. Like, you know, with our cycles, there is no way you can always have good days. But it's okay. That's the thing I want to make you know. Like, it's okay to have bad days. Just because you don't feel positive about yourself on that one day, if you've done 5 6 days of it, or, you know, 3 out of 5, like, that's a win. And remember that. Don't beat yourself up for the one bad day. Congratulate yourself for the 3 good days. And I think with that, I will leave you there. I want everyone to feel happy and love themselves and not beat themselves up when they don't feel great. But thank you again for listening, guys. I really appreciate it. I have been getting some messages recently about my podcast, and I'm really, really, really appreciate them, guys. So thank you so much. If you are enjoying this, please do leave a review if you can, or share it on your stories. I just love to see people listening to it. I make these anyway because it is a passion project, but I do love hearing feedback from people and hearing what they think about the podcast. And yeah, as ever, you can find me on Instagram. It's Chrissy at Chrissy H Fitness, all one word. I'm also on TikTok at Chrissy H Fitness, and I'm also, as I've been kind of plugging recently, I also have an equestrian page where I talk all about equestrian fitness, so fitness for horse riders, and that is currently at the _ equestrian _ PT _ IE. Bit of a mouthful, thinking of changing it soon. I just had to get the name up. That is on Instagram and TikTok as well. And thank you again for joining me. Thank you again for listening to the Why Not podcast. It really means a lot that you are listening in, and I would love if you could please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or subscribe on Spotify. And always, I'd love to hear feedback personally, so if you do want to leave me a message and let me know how you found the podcast, please do.